And welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. Unfortunately, don't want to be here talking about this, but Oklahoma has had its first major injury coming out of preseason camp. Obviously, on Tuesday night, George, you report that Jayden Gibson went down with a knee injury at practice. And, you know, I think let's just cut it straight. I think a lot of people probably, if you're watching this, know from your reporting last night, it's not good news. I don't think that this, and obviously he's going to have an MRI on Wednesday, but it doesn't seem like this is a situation that we could foresee Jayden Gibson returning in 2024.
Yeah, it seems pretty serious. We're not doctors, so we don't necessarily know the extent of the injury, but it does seem very serious.
What
word was that?
Kevorkian, Dr. Kevorkian, look him up. I think
I was like,
out there
what
will know
is
who we're
that
talking
word?
about. No, seriously though, the Jayden Gibson injury, it comes at a kind of a bad time. You know you're going through this in August, right? You know that there's going to be injuries. You can sustain some injuries, and even to a certain extent at the wide receiver position, they could probably sustain an injury because of the depth there, but when you're talking about Jayden Gibson, everything that we had heard from spring and summer and into preseason camp, you feel terrible for the guy.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of R. Mason Thomas a year ago. When he got hurt in fall camp, we'd heard great things about R. Mason Thomas and him kind of stepping up. Of course, his injury wasn't as severe as this one sounds for Jayden Gibson, but Jayden's a guy that I think we thought, we'd said on the show multiple times that he's a guy that we anticipated being a big-time contributor this year. I think it was John Finley at the coaches' luncheon that said a guy that we're not talking enough about is Jayden Gibson. And you look at his production last year, I think it was, 14 catches, 387 yards, and 5 touchdowns a season ago. So
you shorted him one.
15
receptions.
15 receptions. But it's super productive.
Right.
And especially late in the season. You think back to the BYU game, he had some big catches in that one.
Career high, 82 yards, had the touchdown there in the first half.
So, I mean, he's a guy that, and we heard back in the spring that him and Jackson Arnold had really had a tight connection. Part of that probably being because, Nick Anderson wasn't practicing and Andrell was recovering. Jalil Farouk was recovering from injury. So, it's a tough blow, no doubt about it. But like you said, Eddie, I mean, it seems like every fall camp this is going to happen, and it happens across the country. I know I saw some people on the board saying like, "Oh, this only happens to us every single year." I mean, Texas C.J. Baxter, yesterday, it sounds like
every
he's going to miss
fan base
the season.
in the country thinks that their team is the only team susceptible to some type of injury.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this one hits I think a little bit hard because I think there is a lot of people that obviously have seen Jayden Gibson's interviews with us in the media.
Great guy.
He comes across very well, and it seems like somebody that I think every coach and almost every player to a certain extent had said what a maturation process this kid had come from. Of course, from his freshman season. I think it was John that mentioned that at the coaches' luncheon, and it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate because, like you said, I mean, he just an awesome dude. You enjoy talking to him. And, you can just see the maturity from him from his freshman year where, he struggled his freshman year. And there was a lot of people that are like, well, is Jayden Gibson ever going to pan out? And then you saw the flashes last year, and I think that's what got people so excited. And the maturation process that he showed a year ago, I think everybody was like, okay, he's going to have a monster year this year. So it just sucks. But if you're Oklahoma, you have to turn the page. And that is a wide receiver room that has a lot of talent. Right now it seems thin because you've got several guys who are injured or recovering from injury. We got to see Andrell Anthony out at practice the other day. It seems like he's starting to run some routes, maybe just get his feet underneath him. I don't anticipate him being ready, for the first game of the season, but I do think that, come conference play, that's kind of the timetable that they're looking at. They want him, back by then, but they're not going to rush him either, right? Just because Jayden Gibson gets hurt doesn't mean that all of a sudden
that had already been asked on the Crimson Corner today, just in terms of okay, well, what does this mean for Andrell Anthony? What does this mean for Jalil Farouk? And I think you said it best on the podcast today was you don't rush guys back just because you lost somebody.
No, because look, when you're dealing with injuries, especially like Andrell, where you're dealing with an ACL and you have to get your confidence back mentally and then physically. You just want to make sure you're 100%, or else that's when you get hurt again or you re-tear it. And especially somebody like Andrell that had somewhat of a setback, in the spring and over the summer. Like you don't want to rush that back. So I think that they're going to be very cautious with him. Nothing's going to change with him. Jalil Farouk is essentially 95% healthy right now. Like I think that he's pretty much full go in practice, which is great news. I bet that he's maybe wearing a blue jersey, which means he can't get hit. And especially now, like you want to put some of these receivers in bubble wrap, getting closer to the season. Same with Nick Anderson. Like you don't want to overdo it with him. You know what you have in Nick Anderson, Deion Burks, and Jalil Farouk. So just don't overdo it in spring practice. But now you got to turn to or fall camp. Now you got to turn to guys like a Brennan Thompson. Can he be somebody that steps up? Can a Jaquez Petaway, who we've talked a lot about, JJ Hester, I think is a name to watch. He's really stood out in fall camp, and I think a lot of people forget he's even on the roster because he hasn't done much, but he is a taller guy, speed guy, local kid. I think that he's somebody that could maybe benefit from, again, I guess benefit's maybe not the right word, but somebody's going to have to step up, and right. I think J.J. Hester could be in that category. And then some of the young guys, the true freshmen. Ivan Carrion's a guy we've heard a lot about. Obviously,
continues to be a name that
his height.
It just seems like every time that you're talking about the wide receiver position, specifically that freshman group, Ivan Carrion's name is the name that continues to come up. Somebody that makes plays at practice.
Yeah, I mean, look, super tall guy, super athletic,
6'6", 223, I believe.
I mean, some people thought he could be like a tight end someday. So I think he's definitely someone that we've heard's had a really good fall camp, had a really good spring. So I wonder if maybe he gets into the mix. Zion Kearney is another one that I think could step up and play some this year. So they've got guys, maybe not guys with the same amount of experience as Jayden Gibson, but there's certainly a ton of talent in Emmett Jones's room. He's done a great job of turning that thing around. But you definitely want to be careful these next couple weeks because once it's one injury, but
sure.
All of a sudden you add, one more or a couple more, or Andrell's not, back to his old self. That room all of a sudden that you think is really deep is starting to look a little thin.
The good news is that seems to be the only thing that's out there right now. I know there's a couple guys that, I think could be considered banged up right now, but at the same time, you're still working through your way through the first official week of practice. I think that everybody, in I guess all intents and purposes, nobody else has been lost for the season. Obviously, we're going to have to wait on the MRI to confirm, I think, what is feared in the football offices right now for Jayden Gibson. Let me ask you this, just in terms of Jackson Arnold. I know that's somebody that we've talked to or talked about just in terms of building connections with a bunch of these receivers. Jayden Gibson is kind of that guy that it had become pretty obvious that him and Jackson had kind of been on the same page. They had developed a good rapport. Do you worry about Jackson here moving forward over the next month or the next couple weeks, just in terms of if that was kind of your go-to blanket, you're going to have to start working everybody else out? Or is that maybe something that you look too far in on, August 8th and go, yeah, it's probably something that it's a big deal, but he can find other guys?
I think it's certainly something he'll have to work on, right? Like, I think that him and Jayden obviously have spent maybe the most time together other than, probably more than Deion Burks too, obviously, because Jayden was here last year and probably worked a lot with the second team a year ago. So I think it's certainly something that, it's not something he can't overcome. I think it's something that, maybe after practice, he's spending a little bit more time with a Nick Anderson, or maybe not even a Nick Anderson because he probably gets a lot of first team reps with him, but maybe an Ivan Carrion, right? Sure. Or a JJ Hester, or guys that maybe aren't always getting a ton of first team reps. You're spending a little extra time understanding the timing. I know that he and Nick Anderson spent several days together this summer working out in Dallas, working on timing and throws and stuff like that. So I think Nick has obviously stepped up a lot. Jalil Farouk as well. And then Burks has been really his primary target during this fall camp. And that's, I think, largely because he's just running wide open sometimes with his speed and athleticism. But I don't think it's something to just say, oh, that's not a concern, Eddie. I think you're dead on. I think that's something that the coaching staff will have to work on too, right? Like getting other guys some more reps to say, hey, who can step up and play a little bit more, if that means Brennan Thompson coming in. And I get it, Brennan Thompson doesn't exactly play the exact same way that a Jayden Gibson does, but maybe you move some guys around. Maybe you move Burks outside, or you move a Petaway outside and you play Thompson in the slot, or whatever it may be. You're going to have to do some mixing and matching and getting them those reps with Jackson so that he can kind of build that chemistry, because that means something, Eddie. Like it, sure. It does mean something to know where a guy likes a ball and the timing on certain routes, all of those things that I'm sure Jayden and Jackson probably had down to a T heading into fall camp. He's now got to work that with maybe some younger guys that haven't had as many reps as Jayden.
Kind of crazy to think about, and I'll just throw some numbers at you. I don't know how you want to take this in, but thinking about Jaden J. Hester, he's somebody that I think a lot of Oklahoma fans have kind of forgotten about. Yeah. I think that sometimes we forget about him just in terms of he's been injured. He's kind of suffered through the injury bug. He arrived with an injury from Missouri. He had a couple injuries here in Norman over the last couple years. When you compare him and Jayden Gibson career stats in college football, 22 games. They've each played in 22 games. They've each started one game apiece. Jayden Gibson, 15 receptions, 387 yards. J.J. Hester, 13 receptions, 238 yards. So,
how big is J.J. Hester?
J.J. Hester is currently listed at 6'4", 202. Jayden Gibson's was listed at 6'5", 197.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're talking about two bigger guys, and I think that J.J. Hester's a guy, you forget he's been there, right? He's been on the roster, a guy that's stuck around. Didn't get us a lot of playing action. I think he's been a little bit banged up, if I remember correctly. Like, I want to say his first year at Oklahoma, he struggled to just be healthy. Yeah. Last year, I think it was just the rotation was one of those things where it was just tough to get on the field.
He fought some things at the beginning of the season as well that might have sidelined him early.
So, but we heard his name in the spring, and we're hearing it again in the fall. So I think he's certainly a guy. Is he a senior now? Right? It's his fourth year of college football, yes. I believe. He might have a fifth year available to him, but I certainly think he's somebody to keep an eye on. And then I would say the next person is Ivan Carrion, just because, again, both those guys fit the height, right? The height part of it, and you can maybe see them kind of sliding into that Jayden Gibson part where, one thing that Jayden was really good at, maybe better than anybody else on the team, is catching those contested balls.
Right.
And so you need to go and find somebody. Not that these other guys can't do that, but that was something Jayden, I thought, was especially talented
at. A little
bit
better than everybody else at.
Yeah, and so like if you can find somebody, and we'll see, maybe J.J. Hester can do that, maybe Ivan Carrion, Zion Kearney, like they have guys that I think can do that. We just have to see it and see which guy can prove it. And it wouldn't shock me either, Eddie, with Andrell maybe not being able to go at the start of the season, maybe even not Farouk. I think Farouk will be able to, but I could see them in some of these games where they're going to be up big. They're rotating a lot of receiver and say, okay, who can make a play? Yeah. And then once you get into conference play, they roll the dice with somebody that's maybe shown something in those first three games.
It's always a little bit different to do it on a practice field and then show up and do it on a Saturday when everybody's watching. And, it's going to be, I guess, the good part about this. Obviously, there's not a good part about, possibly losing somebody that was going to play a lot, at any point in the season. But I guess the glass half full side of this is you do got time to figure that out before you get to August 30th in the season opener.
Yeah, you got time, and I do think, again, you like the depth there. You've got players that you think can step up and make a difference. It'd be a different story if this was, Deion Burks, for example. Like then you're like, okay, this is not good, right? But and it's not good either way. But I think that you have time, like you said, you can work some of these guys in. Jackson can stay after practice, throw a few extra balls with some guys, get them more reps, in practice and scrimmages, which the first scrimmage will be on Friday this week. They've changed that from originally being Saturday. So you're right. They've got time. And again, I really like that wide receiver room, and I think there's somebody in that room that maybe we're not talking about just yet or not enough, that is going to maybe benefit from this.
It'll be interesting. Just wanted to hop on, talk a little bit about the Jayden Gibson injury. Obviously, George, you wrote about it last night. Good job on breaking a story that obviously none of us want to talk about.
Sucks,
none of us want to be able or have to be forced to put that news out there. But
injuries and arrests. Those are the two worst stories to have to report on.
Absolutely. We'll be back here on Thursday with a little bit more practice report, talking about the offensive line, Jacob Sexton, kind of giving an update about his group, as well as talking to Gentry Williams and the defensive side of the ball in a cornerback room that appears to be decently good. We'll see how that comes together, but they do have a little bit more depth than Oklahoma has had in a long time, it feels like. So for George Stoia, I'm Eddie Radosevich. Stay right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. We will talk to you on Thursday.